Hey everybody, it's Adam back again with another tutorial from the Army Painter. Today we're going to be revisiting our Freya model, the human female warrior from our new Gamemaster series, which we've yet to reveal just yet. Freya Caldwell is a human female warrior, a bit aggressive and sometimes a little bit drunk. She may have the appearance of the angel, but she's anything but angelic once she opens her mouth. It's really exciting for us to begin sharing some of the news and information about this new product line, Gamemaster. Now, we can't release all of the information and all of the details just yet, but it's fun to take you behind the scenes as we develop some of the product lines and storylines with these new characters. We're revisiting Freya again today. We're going back to our Adventure Ready tutorial. Today we're going to move on to some slightly more advanced techniques like highlighting for our level up tutorial. Now that you know the paints that you need, go ahead and grab some clean rinsing water, maybe a wet palette if you like to use one. I highly recommend one. And your favorite brush, and let's get started. Here you can see our finished Freya after we applied all of the base tones and washes in our Adventure Ready tutorial. Today is all about reestablishing those base tones, making them a little bit more vibrant. So we're going to go back to the colors that we initially used before applying the wash to brighten them back up, make them more vivid. So what we're doing here is we're just taking a little bit of Flump Pink. This is from the D&D Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments range. And you can see where the wash has kind of just settled into the recesses. You want to leave that bit of the area. That's the lines. We're painting within the lines. The wash created the lines for us to paint inside of. So we're just going to reestablish the base coat of Flump Pink. And we're focusing on the raised areas here on the hand, the back of the hands, the tops and tips of the knuckles, letting that wash sit in the recesses in between the fingers. Now we're going to move on to applying the same technique to Freya's hair, and we're using Ancient Mummy. Again, this was the base tone that we used before applying a flesh-colored wash to her hair. We're going to allow that wash to sit in the recesses, and I'm just taking a little bit of this Ancient Mummy. I've thinned it down on my wet palette, and I'm just going to pick out the ridges in the hair and the sculpt of the model. Back here on the ponytail and the underside of her hair, you can see how that wash worked its way into the crevices and the recesses of the model. We want it to sit there unpainted because it gives it that nice natural shadow, that nice contrasting layer, and we're increasing that contrast by applying this first round of highlights. All right, we're moving on to painting all of the blue on the model. We have the sheath of the dagger here. I'm using Lich Blue. I'm just gonna very simply apply this. We are just reestablishing that base tone. This is going to make the model really pop on the tabletop. If you're new to painting, this is very simple techniques. Again, we're just painting inside the lines. This is the next level up that you're going to want to learn as you progress in this hobby, especially if you are new to playing role-playing games or tabletop wargaming. It's very simple stuff, just applying a nice, simple base coat, leaving the wash in the recesses on the model. Now we're going to move on to applying a coat of Dragonfire Red. We're going to go back to the areas around her armor, the skirt of armor that she has, and just reestablish that bright, vibrant red tone. Dragonfire Red is a nice, rich red color. And you can see here, it's just, you can see a little bit of the staining of the wash that's natural, and you see most of it is just inside the recesses, of the trim on this skirt here. So I'm going to leave it to sit there and just apply a very simple base coat highlight to all of the red areas on the model. Moving on, I have Rigid Leather on my palette, and I'm just going to find the rich dark browns on this model. We use 3 different shades of brown. I love Rigid Leather because it's a very nice rich reddish brown, oaky brown. And I'm just going to apply this at the bottom areas of this little piece of leather armor. And then I'm going to go back to my palette, get a little bit more paint on my brush, and I'm just going to focus this inside these little areas around her corset and of course on the boots. Take your time here, thin down your paints. It's always better to apply 1 or 2 thin coats as opposed to 1 thick coat. You don't want to obscure any detail on the model. Now we're finishing off the rest of the browns. Right now I have Owlbear Brown. This is a really nice color. Again, from the D&D Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments range. I'm just using this to highlight the straps and the belts on the model. Just a very simple coat here. Again, allowing that wash to stay put inside the recesses, giving some nice tonality and increasing the saturation of our base tones on the model. I also use this color on her crossbow, on her back. This is a good indicator of how you want to leave the wash. You see that it's a very subtle detail right there at the butt end of the crossbow. I want to leave that wash inside of that little nook there, and on this side, the handle of the crossbow, I will apply that highlight. It gives a very nice, realistic shading effect. Virtually everybody at the Army Painter has had their hand in developing these characters for our home games. Everybody from Bo, the owner of the company, who really came up with the ideas, to our marketing team, everybody there, Tina, Malde, and Mads, really all had an element and some influence. It went to John Gallagher, a world-renowned artist who helped us devise the graphics for these characters, and then to me, and I'm having a great time painting them up to match his graphics. So let's hear from John Gallagher himself to hear what he had to think about coming up with the designs for these characters.
So the thing I like most about her, I think I've brought this to bear, is that she's a ferocious, beautiful, powerful woman, and she's right in the middle of the party leading the charge, and as the father of a ferocious, beautiful daughter. Nothing inspires me quite like that. There's no doubt that there's no hesitation in her spirit, which is I think a great, in and of itself, as a life lesson, is a great one to have. Is just fearlessly charge when you know that you're equipped to handle whatever the potential challenge may be.
Thanks a lot, John. It's really awesome to hear the artist's point of view about these characters. As I mentioned, that a lot of people had some influence on the design and the characteristics of these Gamemaster adventurers, these dungeon conquerors, and Freya is definitely a fan favorite in the Army Painter office. Right now I'm using Bugbear Brown, and I'm just picking out the final bit of brown on the model. It's going to be the little details around the leather armor that she has, as well as the little piece of trim here at the tops of her boots. I'm also going to use this to clean up the knapsack that she has around her back. Moving on to Dungeon Gray, a nice medium gray, I'm going to use this to highlight up all the areas that I had painted in this color in the Adventure Ready tutorial, but I'm allowing the wash, we used a shadow wash, to bring out those details and shades. I'm letting that sit in the recesses, just like we've been doing for this whole tutorial. Now moving on to Orc Skin. This is a nice bright gray, a nice light gray, very near to white. I actually like to use this color as a base tone when painting whites very often. We'll probably come back, and I figure in our final tutorial we'll add a white highlight to this cloth that she has wrapped up on her knapsack. Just very carefully, I've thinned down the paint on my wet palette. It gives me more flexibility. It makes the paints a little bit more workable and gives me more control. I'm also going to go ahead, and this is a little bit tedious, but I am going to base in all of the pavers on the base of this model with this Orc Skin. Careful not to get any of the paint into the recesses on these cobble features. I didn't include this in the intro, but I wanted to add some variety to the bases, and I thought a good way to do that was just to go back and apply some washes to some random cobbles here. So I'm using Flesh Wash to apply these over a couple sporadic ones, and then I'm going to grab some of our brown wash and I'm going to apply that, and it gives a nice variety to these cobbles on the base. It's a very simple way of achieving, alternative textural elements and colors and variation on the model. Just very simply, go ahead and pick out some random ones. Don't spend too much time worrying about it. We want this to look natural, of course. Now we're moving on. Our final two colors for this level up tutorial, I'm going to take Chiron Gold, and I'm just going to highlight up all of the gold areas on the model. This chest plate here and under her arm, there's a little bit of a recess that was picked out when we applied our flesh wash from the D&D Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments range. You want to let that sit there. I like to use flesh wash on these golds if you tuned in to our Adventure Ready tutorial, because it has a slightly rosy reddish hue to it. I'm also going to apply this Chiron Gold to the handle of the sword here. Just let me catch focus there. And just going to very carefully apply this to the most pointed and raised areas, allowing that wash to sit, and it gives us a nice gradation, a simple buildup of shadows and contrast on the model. We will come back and add a final highlight to this in our masterclass tutorial, but just these simple steps, these reinvigorating, these reestablishing the base tones, it really does a lot to make your model pop on the tabletop. And if you're new to painting and this is your first time applying a highlight, I assure you that if you follow along with your human warrior at home, you're really going to impress your gaming friends. The final color that we're going to use in this tutorial is Mithril Silver. We're just going to apply this to all of the silver on the model, these little rivets that she has here on her loincloth, I guess you call it, and just the little ornaments around here. You don't want to forget to apply this to the sword as well. Just give it a nice solid base coat. And that about does it for Freya and our level up tutorial. Again, we do have one more tutorial coming up. We're going to finish this off with some masterclass techniques, some extreme highlights. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. This has been a really fun model to paint. I do hope that you enjoyed this level up tutorial as much as I enjoyed painting up this Freya model for you today. Stay tuned, because real soon we will have our masterclass tutorial. That's the final in this series for this character model. Remember that you can find all of the paints and products used in this tutorial at your friendly local game store, from your favorite online retailers such as Amazon, or at www.thearmypainter.com. Remember that the magic in miniature painting is that it can be as simple or as challenging as you'd like it to be, but with the right techniques, you're sure to achieve some great results. We'll see you next time.